Oh, you're making your extra hours up. Anyway.
There you go.
There we go. All right, so we're just going to review a couple of items, housekeeping items. Remember, because we're videoing this, you need to use the whatever this is called, microphone. And if we need help with it, we can ask Tom, because he'll help us. And then, did everybody bring their yellow folder or the contents of their folder? Or they picked it up when you came in? Everybody's good to go. Okay, we have a couple of items to add to that as well. We have scheduled the time today, 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. I will...
You got it? Check, check.
Here, why don't you just take over?
Go for it.
Just put it a little bit closer to your
I'm going to have you stop at 3:15. That'll be our hard stop to decide how we want to use the last 45 minutes so that we can make sure that we close at 4, because I know you all have other things on your agenda, probably some celebrations for the last day of school, maybe, right? Okay. And the next board meeting I wanted to let you know as far as the timeline is June 14th. Okay? So those are a couple of things. If you could look at the contents of your packet, that is the small packet that we just handed out today that's got the paper clip on it. I'm going to briefly go through that with you. We'll start, we've got the meet and confer agenda. First thing, and the second thing is followed by the policy, meet and confer policy. Wanted to make sure everybody had a copy of that. Then we were following that with the norms. Norms are the next one, followed by the minutes from last week, and followed by our options evaluation grid from last week as well. All right? So what I'd like to do right now is I would like to go to the third insert, which is the meet and confer norms, and I want to talk about that for just a minute. Okay? I know that we read through these last week and everybody felt like that they could agree with that. I think one of the things that I wanted to bring up today for conversation among the team here is that one of the group norms is about cell phones and cell phone usage, and it was brought to my attention that there was some cell phone usage last week, and so I want to talk about that as a norm and see where we all stand. I know some of us use our cell phones for our calculators. So I brought calculators so that everybody could have access to that. Is there any further discussion about cell phones that we need to talk about? Because I think that when we had originally made these norms, texting was a conversation that we talked about. And so I think that we need to revisit that and decide, is that changing? Can we deal with that? Because we have the opportunity to have a caucus if we need to talk to our colleagues. At that time, you could text or call if you needed to. But when we're at the table, how are we feeling about that norm?
Personally, I think that it goes with number one. Cell phones are to be on vibrate only, and please leave room to talk or text. So the answering of the talk or the text would be in reference to something that is happening that is maybe an emergency or something that needs to be solved at that moment. And that's where we stand. If we need to use a calculator, obviously you brought one today.
Anybody else? We're all okay with that then? Okay, well, I'm happy to say I'm glad to put my cell phone away. So now that we have calculators. Thank you guys for revisiting that for just a minute. All right, so I wanted to let you guys know that one of the conversations that we talked about last week was what happened in the past when there wasn't consensus. So I went back and I looked I have a notebook that takes us way back to like 2002 as far as meet and confer agreements. And I also called 6 other members who had been in either meet and confer or IBN over the past about 6 or 7 years, or 7, I would say 6 to 8 years, and asked them how they remembered it. I called 2 administrators, I contacted 2 certified staff, and I contacted 2 classified staff. And I asked them the same questions. I asked them, when did you serve? And we kind of figured that out. I could go back in here and find out when they served. Did they remember a time when options were thrown out because consensus could not be reached and the process was restarted? 100% of them said they don't ever remember doing that. There was never a time they remember doing that. The next question was, what do you remember happened when consensus could not be reached? 5 of them said it went according to policy, and if you look at the policy, it says if a consensus cannot be reached, it's moved to the superintendent level for a decision. There was one person who said that never happened during my time. That was some person who just served on meet and confer, and we never had an opportunity where we had to send something to the superintendent at that time. All the folks that were on before meet and confer do remember at least a couple of times when it was moved to the superintendent due to the committee not being able to come to consensus. And then I also asked them, do you remember any time that there was a change made in the middle of the process? And 100% of them said no, they always followed the same process. And then I asked them, can you think of anything else you want to add about the process? And they said no. So that was just kind of some historical perspective that I wanted to give you. And then that's why I provided the policy so for your reference as well, if you have any questions about that. Are there any questions or comments about that portion? Okay. All right. So let's review our work from last week. And if you would look at the last piece there, and I think Barb's going to bring it up behind us. We didn't want a workman's comp issue, Megan, so we tried to print out everything so you wouldn't have to turn around. And just as a brief review, we came up with 9 options. And with each of those options, we went through a series of ratings based on how meet and confer had worked for the last 2 years. We used the very same rating system, the rating scale. And following the process that we had used in the past, we identified the top 3. And at that point, we had a lot of conversation around differing opinions, I guess. And we decided that we were going to reconvene today. So is there anything else that you guys want to bring up about the last time we met that you want to add to the conversation right now that maybe I left out?
I think we have to state that we did come to an agreement last Monday about increasing the starting teacher salary from $36,000 to $38,000. So that was one agreement that we all came to consensus on and agreed to that.
Great job. Thank you for bringing that up. Sergio, did you? I saw you pick up your microphone. I thought maybe. Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. So with that being said, then I'm going to go around the table so that we can have a launching point for our conversation today. And I'm going to ask you, as a result of our work last week and your time to think and reflect over the last several days, where are you at this point so we know where we can start from, okay? And Sergio, are you okay if I start with you? And you can go ahead and share with us, and you'll have to use your microphone. Okay.
Am I on here? Okay, cool. So I just kind of wanted to add on that I feel that administrators work just as hard as everybody else. I'm just going to cut straight to it, in my opinion, if I may share my opinion. Many of our administrators have climbed from classroom teacher roles, and they've gone through all the steps, furthered their education. They've invested time, hard worked till 8 o'clock at night sometimes. Many of them have family, little kids and whatnot. So in my opinion, I just kind of wanted to maybe reconsider my opinion on that. I didn't speak last time we were here, but I kind of wanted to digest everything that was going on. And so, I feel that, whatever is decided today, I think it should be fair across the board, all staff. We're all a team here. And anything that deviates from that, it doesn't send a team message. And that's what I support, is being a team.
Thank you for sharing your opinion.
Yeah.
We appreciate that you did that today. Cool. Greg, you want to go?
Sure. I concur with Sergio's opinion. I actually, when I looked at the posting on the governor's website, I actually felt like our proposal was the most robust of them all across the board, that represented every swath of the organization. So I thought how we settled on was exactly how it should go, and this sheet even bears that out too. So across the organization, we did better by everybody. And the teachers got the full 10% that was promised by the governor. So I I guess I haven't moved from my original position.
Shanta, are you comfortable going next? No? We'll come back to you? Okay, because you'll state your position for us, right?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll come back to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so last week, the way I felt is that, yes, every staff member should be valued and have the opportunity to a raise, but where I have the concern is that 9% for a teacher and an administrator is not the same. And also doing research within other districts, administrators, they did get a raise, but it was proportional to a teacher. If a teacher got, let's say, a 12%, an administrator will get maybe like a 5% or 4%. So, and that's where we stand right now, especially that our teachers were fighting really hard with the Red for Ed, making sure that we're going to get a decent raise so we can put more food on the table.
Okay. Monica.
My position is the same as it was when we met before. Thank you, Barb. It goes back to being that team and operating as a whole. And I think everybody has made valid points about how we've lived life here in Glendale Elementary School District, and valid points about things we've experienced and hardships we've experienced, and everyone has done that. And I think we entered into this when we knew there was going to be a walkout. I think we entered into this united, and I think we need to remain that way.
Okay, Matt. Is it green?
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah, it's great. We're good.
I'm not hearing you, though.
Really?
Nope.
No.
Here, Monica will share with you. Or Ted will come fix us.
How about now?
Nope.
Yeah, no?
No.
This one's working? Oh, yeah, that one works. Like we were talking last week, I just think we need to do something. I feel all employees deserve some sort of raise. And what we've proposed is awesome, but I concur with Jenny, our teachers, and classified staff. We made that step to push to get more funding into the budget. We marched at the Capitol. We did all those things. We met with our legislators. Our administration does a great job, and they deserve a raise as well. I just think the 9% across the board is, I think we can do better for our certified and classified staff, and I think we should try to find a way to do that. Like I said, administration deserves a raise too. I mean, we all show up and work hard for our kids every single day. The 9% across the board is a great jumping off point and a great starting point, but I think we can be more creative and find a solution in that term.
Okay, thanks. Mike.
I think I'm a big believer that divided we fall, and so with that, I believe that consistency is important, and I think, like probably most from what I've heard today, I also have not changed my position from last week.
Okay, Shanta.
I agree with everybody. I was confused last week and still a little confused this week, but I agree with everybody. Their opinions all matter. I mean, I'm a classified staff, but I do work 2 jobs only to pay for my student loans and 2 car payments. So even if I got a raise, it might still not make a dent in mine, but it might make a dent in somebody else's.
Okay, thank you guys for sharing. Appreciate that. I can share as well. Megan, I'm sorry. No, this side, we're your mom, here.
It's okay. I think
I've been reflecting over the last week and a half and been listening to others that have come and talked to me and shared what their thoughts are on this raise and kind of their guidance. And as I researched and looked at other districts and what they're doing, that's the paper that I put in front of everybody today. It's just kind of my research. I do agree, and I agreed to it last week. I believe everybody in our district deserves a raise. There is no question that everybody in this district works hard and tries their best and does what they need to do to make our district better. And we've seen that gain. I think the biggest issue I see is that I think we could make some changes. We could provide the opportunity for our classified staff that are below the $12 an hour, the opportunity to hit $12 or get a 12% or a 13% or something that's close enough that at least the people that are below what minimum wage will be in 2020, I think it is, or 2019, whatever, 2020, January 1st. I think that would also be a boost to their morale and and they'll work harder and go, okay, this district appreciates who I am, what I do for this district, because there are people that are on the lowest piece that have worked for our district for quite a while. Do I agree that teachers should get above a 10% raise? I do. I know that with the 9% and the 1% that a specific group of people are going to receive, we would be getting a 10.06% raise. And yes, that's amazing. And it provides us the opportunity to get those lowest teachers above where we decided the new teacher salary should be. But again, I think that teachers who are in the nitty-gritty every day with kids and making changes happen should get a higher percentage. Now, I'm not saying that admin should get zero. Our admin, our principals and assistant principals deserve a raise. They deserve to have that raise, and maybe it's above a 5%, maybe it's a 7%, maybe it's an 8%. Maybe it's as close as we can get it based on the monies that we have available. And then I think the farther you are away from kids, the percentage should be going down, because again, you make more, you're able to live on, not work two jobs like many of the people that are at the lowest end of the totem pole, but it also will still give you a decent increase to your pay. A lot of districts that I looked at have caps for the amount of money that they will pay out for certain groups of people, and then you have to get the percentages. And as we've done, because we went from salary schedule to not a salary stepless, we've lost that momentum of, we get a step every year. Now we can't go back to that unless we're willing to adjust everybody's salary, and I think that would be way too challenging and too difficult. But that would give people the understanding of, this is what I would get every year, whereas now we're able to kind of look at that, or we look at other options. Maybe we give a same percentage to everybody, and then based on your years of service, you get an additional based on that monies that equates to whatever percentage of monies that we can use. I think doing a 9% across the board, people think is fair, and I don't think that way. I think that the monies were used and we are willing to use it for everybody, but again, there has to become a compromise. And if we decide not to have a discussion and a talk about a different option, I think we're failing the system, the interest-based negotiations process. And that is my experience. So that is my opinion and what I have to say.
Thank you. Sherry Dawn.
So there are many things that were said at this table that I agree with. I am very concerned about the division that we're creating, because we've worked really hard over the last several years to create a culture on in our district that really does put us all together. And I know that I can feel those tensions already occurring. So I don't know at this point what the best answer is for that. But what I'm more concerned about, and kind of ties into what you were talking about though, Megan, is this process. So what I'm concerned about is we followed a process that we used for every other recommendation that we made. Hands down, we all, when we independently scored, came up with the same beliefs. Like the top three were inclusive of all of them. So I was just very concerned about, we followed the same process we've been doing. We came up with the recommendations like we've been doing, and then we decided that that wasn't the process we were gonna follow. And I've been really trying to wrap my mind around it all week with, I'm not sure how we moved there. I'm confused about that. So I think my stand on that number 8 is inclusive of everything that we voted for. So it includes 9% across the board, which was the 3rd highest. It includes itself, which was the 2nd highest, and it also includes increasing the teacher starting salary as the highest.
Thank you guys for all sharing your opinions and your position at this point. And because under the current process of meet and confer, has never experienced a lack of consensus, pretty much across the board, this is new territory for us. So we're going to have to figure this out as we go along, since we don't have our normal facilitator, and it's a little bit different from that process. So I think what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is I would like to go with well, let me ask you, do you want to go with a temperature check, or would you like to go with further discussion about where we move from here?
I feel like we just did a temperature check.
Right?
So.
Yep. So let's go ahead and let me hand out something that I have looked at, and it's Barb was so nice to put that together. Thank you, Barb. And we'll do a little comparison here. Hopefully a lot of the numbers are the same. I reached out to several different districts and actually had some emails from some folks right at the district that were in the decision-making process. Looks like there are some differences between the districts that responded. Well, Megan, you said you did yours by going on their board agenda, yep, correct?
So all of mine that are on my paper are researched from going through every district that is closest to us that I could, when I went through the AD website on districts, and going then to their board agenda or board minutes. Some of them, their minutes are not posted yet. I don't know how that is, but they're not. And then I researched, the one thing I'm going to tell you right now is that their numbers could look different based on if you included what they were already going to receive. So some districts, like us, agreed to their IBN recommendations or their meet and confer recommendations prior to us going on the walkout. And so they did not say, oh, we're just gonna not go with those, kind of like us. We kept what we already decided and what the board already approved, but then on top of that, they calculated in the monies that they are going to receive. And those are the percentages that are here that I've written out. I tried to write down exactly word for word what they put in there. I tried to put them in the right column. Some of them I had to readjust. And so if there's nothing, like Avondale, I don't have a classified in admin because I couldn't find or understand their statement. That's why I put a 7% non-function, 1,000 staff. I didn't know if that included classified in admin. So it's in the certified column. And then I think that's pretty much where.
Good, so I think we've got a wide example of what different districts are doing between the two sheets. And they're all very different. There isn't one that's the same, not one. They're all very different. Some are as low as, looks like 7%, 6.2% for certified staff, to as high as the 10.06.
And the 6.2% for Pendergast is because they already had like a 5% raise going in. So their actual thing is very different than
Right, and some
what
of the
they
others
had.
are as well. Like I know Washington's is very different than the 9% too,
Yep.
because they had already done a previous raise.
Yep.
So I think just as a decision based from the governor's budget, I think that these are pretty accurate numbers.
Yeah, and based off of the
Right?
monies, the new
Yeah.
monies that are coming in. Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
I think that's one of the things we have to keep in mind too, is that we don't know the stories behind, we don't know the district's history. So some of what they may have already decided to do this year, or some of the way that they may have decided to do what they've done could be, like have really good reasoning behind it, that we don't have any privy to that at all. So I just think we have to keep that in mind too.
But I think these are great data points.
Okay.
Any questions or further explanation needed on either of these sheets?
Yeah, I attended the Deer Valley School District governing board meeting. Yeah, the teachers did get 10% from the new money that came in, but they also got, they were also negotiating, at which they got 2% from the classroom side fund, so really they got a 12%.
So like, for instance, if you could take, for example, our district, teachers will receive that 5%, that $500 increase in, and those, we wouldn't have put any of that on here, Jenny. That would be aside because that was decided before. So I think what we tried to do on here on our sheet is only put what was decided as a result of the new money.
Yep, that's what I did too. When
So with that being said, Mike, do you have any financials that you want to bring out at this point, or?
I don't have a presentation as we did last week. I think just an attempt to kind of just throw numbers out there. I think there's, Barbara, you pass that out, just to kind of look and think of things differently. I think probably generated mainly because of Matt's email earlier in the week. So just to kind of look at it just differently, to be quite honest, just to, sorry. So you can take a look at it.
Thank you, sir. Okay. I don't know why I called you. It's okay. I'm a sir today, apparently.
So can you, once everybody gets this, you'll walk us through this?
Yes.
Check one, test.
On the far left column, we just had just through percentages out there. There are three biggest sources of funding, or it's been at least broken down in three separate ways: M&O, grant funds or other funds, and food and nutrition. Just to kind of give you an idea, I think, Sherry Dawn, last week you asked about, hey, the cost is exceeding the revenue that's coming in, and my response was it's a little bit more complicated than that. There are other monies that are factored in, and so we try to perhaps simplify it as best as we could. So you're going to see that little yellowish far left, and then you're going to go into the blue columns, which is certified, the benefits, and then what the total would be, classified, and then administrators, and then just on the far left, just to kind of give you an idea and a different perspective at looking at the data more than anything. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
When we're talking about the administrators, does that include, is that just APs, principals, your directors, your coordinators, I don't know who you grouped into that
Yeah,
category.
so that's a great question, Megan. So the administrator column is not, we tried to kind of go along the conversation from last week, which is when we talk about administrative costs, it's more inclusive than just kind of the heads of departments. It's the entire IT department, the entire, payroll department, warehouse. And so for the purpose of the administrator column, we try to go based on the conversation from last week. So your directors, your APs, your principals, your assistant soups. So try to make that a more narrowed group.
So you're saying that. So what I'm hearing you say is that it's from the definition that I put up on the board.
I think a lot closer, maybe not 100%, but a little bit more towards that definition than the definition that we use in our accounting system.
Okay,
Which
so
is
it doesn't include secretaries, administrative secretary?
That's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
Just trying to clarify for my understanding, thank you.
And just as our quick review, Mike, the new revenues that are coming in, can you break those up for us again, just as a reminder?
Do we have the minutes in here? That might be the easiest. It's on here, yeah. It's here. I have it. If you look at page 2 of your minutes, on the top right corner, so for the purpose of trying to communicate the information and try to simplify some of the formula complexities, we generated about 3.2 million. And then an additional $1,035,000 for roughly a total of about $4.2 million, which is an increase in what would be the M&O budget from those two components.
For then a total of 4.2, right?
It's 4.3 on there. 4 point.
Looking at 4.3, 4.2.
Yeah, 4.3.
And then also, Mike, on the possible scenario on page 2 of the minutes, on the second slide down from on the right and the third slide down on the left, which is very small print, right? The blue and the one with the blue stripe and the one with the yellow stripe. Those are the numbers that we were working from last week.
That's correct. And so the document before you now is just a data sorted a little bit differently. And again, just to give it a different view, different perspective.
And that was with the 9%, correct? In both of those scenarios?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. So I think one of the things that, and please help me because I think we're learning as we move along here. One of the things that we need to talk about is as we go back to our options grid and how everything was rated last year, how do you see us moving forward from this process? I think that that's kind of where we reached a stalemate the last time we were together, and I think in order for us to move forward, we have to come to an agreement as a team as to how we're going to get off this spot or not. So opinions or statements at this point?
I just have trouble figuring this out mathematically with the alternative that's been put out. So if you just did simple math here at the 9% across the board, what would we say we had 4.2? Is that 4.2? If you total up those M&O, the M&O line at 9% all the way across, so you got 2.3 and 1 and 4, you're underneath that budget anyway. But if you were to go to the 12%, just right there, you're short 1.1 million to give that 12% raise. To make that up, you'd have to take all the money away from the administrators and then go find some more money to make that work. That's untenable. And we already agreed not to do the DAA. That's off the table. It just makes no sense mathematically to even attempt to go to a 12% pay raise, even if you took all the money away from the administrators. I don't know where you're going to get the rest of it. So I just think it's a waste of time to even talk about that personally.
Their statements?
I just wanted to reiterate that whatever the percentage that works, it's across the board fair, the same number for everybody, regardless if you're an administrator, if you're not, you're classified at the bottom of the scale. I think that's irrelevant, and I haven't sat here at other meet and confer, but from what I gathered, the process was followed, and it was pretty much independent. I mean, everybody was looking down at their paper, thumbs up or down, so I never believe that deviating from a firm process is a good idea. So, I mean, you're undermining what you've been working on. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So maybe we take a temperature check now.
Okay.
Can we do that? And just see where we really are?
Okay, so let's talk about, last week we were actually talking about number 8, and we know that we've already agreed upon the teacher salary from 36 to 38, correct? So taking the other two, the other piece into account, that would leave the rest of number 8, or it would leave number 1 or 8. So do you want to just stick with 8 and we can do a temperature check on 8?
Yes.
To me, why wouldn't we just take a temperature check on 1?
We can absolutely do that.
We can do that.
But I do want to caution us on following the process. And in interest-based negotiations, the process is, if you thumb down on consensus, you must bring back an option. And none of us has brought back an option.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be an option that's on the table already. It's an option that maybe could give us a little adjustment to feel a compromise, to help us go, okay, that's fine, that's better, no, we're not going to do it, but that's the process.
So help me clarify, Megan, when you say that you bring back a different option, because that's not the way that I remember it, and that's not the way that the information that I gathered. I think that they brought back maybe a little tweak to what was already listed, but not a whole different option. Maybe I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Well, a tweak to what is already provided would, instead of saying a 12% increase for certified and classified, maybe we suggest a 10% for classified.
Yep.
That to me is another option.
Okay.
That's taking a tweak from what was already here and just tweaking it to go, okay, maybe this is a better option to say this is fair, equitable, when one group of people might be getting more monies than others.
Right. So, and that's,
Does that make
that's the way I
sense?
think yes. Thank
Okay,
you for
that's
clarifying.
why I was like, why are we doing a temperature check when we already know what people are thinking and nobody's actually brought another option to the table?
Great, that's a great suggestion. So we'll come back around after we do the temperature check and the folks can give the options. Let's just kind of see where we're at first, and then we'll go around, if that's okay.
But didn't we already do a temperature check the first
Well,
time?
we didn't do it with thumbs. Do we want to do, I mean,
Okay,
I think
we
it
can do
really
it
needs to
thumbs.
be
Okay.
clarified as
Yeah.
to where,
Yep.
because some people who
Right,
might
could have
know
changed,
might
yep.
be midway.
Yep.
So, okay, so we're going to do, if you cannot live with it, your thumb's going to go down. If it's not perfect, but you can live with it, your thumb could go sideways, or if you support it, your thumb will go up.
Can you clarify, we're just doing
And
number one?
We're doing option number one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and let us know where you sit.
Sorry, just got to read it again.
And it was to support it?
Right. So how are you feeling about number one? Okay, so we'll go around. It looks like we have 3 thumbs down, 2 thumbs sideways, and then I didn't do my math.
The rest.
75 thumbs up.
I'm sorry.
All right, so Megan, do you mind starting? And
With an option?
Right, suggest your option.
I will suggest an option. All right, so my option would be, and again, this could get wordy, I'm sorry. My option would be to do 10% for classified employees, so anybody that's labeled classified. Does that make sense? 10% for anybody that is not quote-unquote teacher. So not in that 1.06%, whatever that was called.
So,
You know the teacher definition that Governor Ducey gave out last year for the 1.06?
so certified non-teacher.
Yeah. Certified teacher then would be the 9%, because we're getting the 1.06 already agreed upon, right? And then whatever that percentage is goes to admin. I don't know what that other percentage would be, because I don't know what a 10% would look like for just those 2 groups of people. Because the 9% would already be teachers, and we already know that calculation just for the teacher definition. Well, we don't actually know that calculation. But would that be like an 8%? Would that be a 7%? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do not. So can you just walk me through?
So if we gave, do you understand? Do you want to?
No, you got it.
Okay.
I'm just letting you know I'm hearing you.
Okay, so since the definition of teacher, right, they're already getting the 1.06%, right? And then we would agree to give them a 9%, so then theirs would be a 10.06, so they get a 0.06 higher. Then your not classified as teacher would get the 10%. So your related services people, your CELs, your SLPs, your OTs, I could probably list all the abbreviations. So everybody else in the blue column. Yeah, down at the bottom.
Is that as your, okay.
Yeah. And I know AAs were a part of the 1.06, but their percentage wasn't the same. So you would have to decipher that amount. And then your classified employees. So nobody that's in the admin department would get a 10%. And then everybody else would get whatever percentage we could give them. And I would hope it would be like a 7%. I just don't know the amounts. Maybe I should have given you the option beforehand, I'm sorry. Yes.
So you're saying take the money that we have, and then
Yeah.
whatever's left, whatever percentage that works out would be what that would be.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would love to give everybody a 10%, but
Okay,
I know teachers are already getting that if we give them a 9%.
Okay,
so.
I need to check for understanding to make sure that I'm following. So 10% for the classified.
Is it me?
So 10% for the classified, right?
Yeah.
We know that teachers that are part of the 1.06, we would add an additional 9, which would get them to the 10.06,
Yeah.
right? Teachers that are not considered part of the 1.06, which is the more defined teacher definition,
Yes.
such as your AAs, CELs, PTs, OTs, right?
Yeah. Your RNs, your SLPs.
They would receive a 10% increase.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then whatever that leftover money is will be the percentage for whoever is in the definition of admin.
The definition of admin or the more narrow definition that we came up with last week?
The more narrow definition. Because I'm going off of this paper.
Yeah.
So whatever your definition of was to make up this paper, that's what I'm going off of.
And are you saying that it would be equal to the 4.3 million then?
Yes, whatever that dollar amount is, but not going over, because we also did agree last week not to touch the district additional assistance. I got it on the first time around. The DAA.
Okay.
I did practice that.
Okay, Jenny, option.
Well, I think, looking at the option, what Megan had, I think it's more, it's more fair, I would say. The teachers, getting the 9% plus the 1.06%, classified 10%, employee, and then 10% not, those that are not teachers, and then whatever leftovers to the admin. But the question is, well, what is that leftover? So that's why, is it fair for the admins too, because, we need to be fair for everyone.
If not, then.
Mike might be able to, he's madly punching in numbers, so we'll hope. So yours is, you are
I agree
sticking
with that, yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And how about you, Matt, option?
Maybe that's what we'll do. Maybe we'll wait till we all hear the options and then kind of go to the drawing board might be best.
Maybe you can go. Give you a break when you're drawing board.
Well, looking at the math, just to throw an option out there, looking at percentages, if we did a 12% certified, 9% classified, and a 7% admin from the totals of the three, that'd put us at 4,390,085. We also have money in funds 11, 12, and 13 that is just sitting there that we haven't been spending, that we could use to offset that additional cost of the 80, right? 80,000, right around there, 78, 80,000.
What I want to make sure that everyone understands, those amounts are going to decrease because that's part of the increase from $2,000 to $500 already.
Mm-hmm.
So those amounts are going to decrease in what would be this time next year's payout of Prop 301.
Matt, will you restate those numbers? I was listening and I didn't catch it. What percentages are you thinking?
So it'd be 12 for certified, 9 for classified, and 7 for administration.
Okay.
Based off the blue, orange, and green paper.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep. Do you recall how much of an increase the 301 payout? That money went up. I can't remember the specific dollar amount, but it has increased this year, and it did get passed and extended. So I know we were worried about that possibly going away, but it's been voted on and carried forward, so that's there now, and the dollar amount for that did increase. So can't remember exactly the number off the top of my head.
So I want to make sure that we all understand what Prop 301 is. Okay, we refer to it as Classroom Site Fund, Funds 11, 12, and 13. That was passed initially back in early, about 2000, 2001. We use about and I'm going off memory here, we use about $2.4 million of that already into teacher salaries. And if you've attended a board meeting when we do the annual financial report, we kind of go into what that breakdown looks like. So I believe that is fun. a combination of the funds 11 and 12 that are used towards teacher salaries. Again, about 2.4, give or take. And then Fund 12 is really the performance pay component. And so we've factored in part of the discussion that we've had prior to the last two meetings when we talked about going from 2,000 to 2,500. Those amounts were kind of factored in. So also remember that those dollar amounts on the classroom site fund or the Prop 301 every year is revised, and it's $367, whatever it might be per student, and every year it gets revised. It does not necessarily provide new monies. What the extension is, it's truly that, an extension. It's allowing us to go another 20 years and allow us to continue to having a funding revenue source that otherwise would have ended, I believe, in 2021, something like that. So, Matt, to answer your question, I think that from 2,000 to 2,500, we kind of factored that in and we anticipated that to account for giving teachers a bigger performance pay increase. What I do want to say, Megan, going back to your question, to your option, we're going to really have to go, the Matt piece or Matt's recommendation. I think it's a little bit easier, but to try to extract those teachers that are not a Function 1000, we're going to actually have to go back to the drawing board before I can actually give you a dollar amount, because we're going to have to reduce them or take from the certified column. Right. And remove them and add and just recalculate them, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Mike, would it be important for us to know what a 1% raise would be for each of those job classifications, so that if we wanted to add up or down by percentage, we would know what 1% would cost us?
You can just take whatever column you want and divide by that number.
And right, so for instance, if we're looking at certified, I would add the 1.372 million to the 192,000, and that total, take 1% of that total to find out what it would cost to give all teachers a 1% raise out of any fund.
Yes.
Okay.
You would take the grand total from whatever column you're looking at and divide that by whatever to get that, that percentage.
Okay.
That's why you're saying it's easier for his, because his is already calculated, versus mine, who tried to split a group.
And as I'm thinking and, kind of looking at it, I mean, if you look at, just take that first column, you guys, you can double it, and at the end of the day, it's, the difference of the 0.06 or the 0.6 to the 8, it's probably immaterial. So I guess going back to the original point, which was just double that first row, and you're going to be pretty close. You know what I mean? It's theoretically, technically, for the purpose of the calculation, we lumped all teachers together,
right?
Which is a more broader definition, which is inclusive of your AAs, yourselves, PTs, OTs, and you can see on the bottom, we kind of defined that so that you would know what was included in that. So the difference is probably very minimal, Megan, to be quite honest.
Okay. It's already over. How did that happen?
So Mike, am I right? Just, I want to check my math. To give the teachers in the first column a 1% raise, it would be $313.16. No, 313 and $16.
I need a few minutes too, sorry.
Just be quiet while I do my math.
Probably best if we take a time now so that we can run this on a spreadsheet.
Okay. So are we okay? Can we, like, how many minutes do you need? 5? 5, 10, 5.
Let's just stick with the 10 and then we'll kind of go from there. 'Cause I'll have,
Don't go very far.
Yeah, so we need to really be back at 2:10. Okay? Do you need me to help you with something?
no, I'm just gonna have Sarah run over
Okay.
these various, I'm sorry, before we go though, I thought there was a third scenario. I think we talked about 2 of the 3, right?
There wasn't, there was
Was
only 2.
2 down?
Yep.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
I'll be back, guys.
Two checks.
The, Megan, your recommendation, which again, I'm going to check for understanding, it was 10% for classified. And I think we just agreed that just the 10% for all teachers, including AA sales, was just, we were pretty close. It wasn't, it was immaterial to try to break that out, that 0.6. And then whatever monies were left over would then go to admin. So interestingly enough, you're looking at a 10% across the board increase. So you're looking at 1% increase for admin is about $45,049. What would be left over when you take the teacher and the teacher, the certified and the classified, 456,000 is left. 456,826 is left over. So those are 456,826, right? Pretty close.
My option actually gives people a better raise.
It's consistent. It's a consistency. There's consistency across the board. So that's kind of the financial result of your suggestion. And I think the Matt one, the reason that one's the easy one because we have that data already here, so there's no need to really recalculate that. So there you go.
So can I ask a clarifying question, Mike? For Megan's option, that still takes into account the teachers moving from 36 to 38. You've calculated that in there?
Yeah, and that's actually a really good question, which is why it took a little bit more time. And so I'm probably going to have to, Sarah might do a better job of trying to articulate this. When we pull the data for anyone, we look at their current salaries. And so we have to assume that that individual is returning. For the purpose of this analysis, I also know that about 111, or at the time that it was initially analyzed, about 111, I believe, certified staff have given their notice that they're not returning. So that's where you kind of provide a little bit of that, if you will, cushion, which then allows us to incur the cost from $36,000 to $38,000 as the starting salary. I hope that made sense. And so we felt really good after talking about it that the suggestion that Megan provided, along with the increase from 36,000, 38,000 was doable. There is no wiggle room shortly after that, but it is doable.
So that would be an adjustment to your, or a clarification to your recommendation. Do you want to restate your recommendation with the new information?
Right. So my recommendation is just changing the wording of the 9% increase across the board for employees. Is we're still doing a 9% plus the 1% that has already been okayed for teachers that are within the teacher, Governor Ducey teacher definition. Then we are doing a 10% for the teachers that are not in the Governor Ducey definition. And then we are doing a 10% for classified and apparently a 10% for admin, right? Is what you just said?
Based on the information before, yes, that's correct.
Okay, that would be.
Okay, so what I have down on paper then, Barb, just make sure that we have the right numbers. We have a 10% for classified, a 10% for certified non-classroom teachers, 10.06, I'm taking into account the extra 1.06, right, for teachers, and a 10% for admin, and starting salary from 36 to 38. Does that take everything into account?
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't realize that's what it would come out to be. How pretty nifty.
And then Matt, did you need any other questions answered about your recommendation?
Not right at the moment. I'm doing some other calculations as we speak, so.
Okay. So it looks like we have two adjustments on the table. Do we want to go around and do a temperature check on each of those? Or how do you see this happening? Do we want to start with Megan's, we'll do a temperature check, and then with Matt's, we'll do a temperature check?
I think you have to, I think we need to separate.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So why don't we make the 10% across the board option A, and then the 12, 9, and 7 option B? Is that okay, instead of labeling it Megan's and Matt's? Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and start with option A, which is 10 across the board and with all classifications. You want to give me your thumb indication on that? So it looks like it's 4 sideways thumbs and 6 thumbs up. So we don't need to go back and ask for any other clarifications then, correct? Are you comfortable with that? Okay. All right. And then option B, which is the 12 certified, 9 classified, 7 admin. So it looks like we have 4 thumbs up and 6 thumbs down. Okay, so if we look at those two, we don't need further explanation on A, so give me your feedback as how the direction that you want to go.
I say we go with A.
Okay, so are we okay to move forward with that?
Well, I could live with A. I don't know how the teachers within our district, are going to see, 10% across the board. I don't know if that's going to create a climate that will, do we actually get supported? Why, 10% is not going to be the same on all. So that's the only concern that I have. Like, if I would have given it, now I realize if I would have given an option, maybe it should have been like everyone having the same amount of money, like if it's for, 4,000 for classified, 4,000 for administration, 4,000 for teachers, if I would have known that option A, the result was going to be, 10% across the board.
I think for me, just by bringing the option forward, like I said, I didn't realize that 10% would be across the board. I wanted to see a difference in classified and certified and the admin percentage. I didn't need to see the huge difference, but I did think that there needs to be a difference. Just because of the payment and the amount of monies that is differentiated between the two groups. There's already a big difference between certified and classified. So, I mean, like I said, I can live with it. I think in the future, we need to start thinking about maybe longevity and a couple other things to help people stay in the district. I think there's going to be a division between staff, not because everybody got the same, because of everybody getting the same percentage. And again, it doesn't go back to who works harder, who doesn't. It goes back to what was this money for. I am glad that we were able to provide everybody with an option and with a feasible raise. And I do believe that our district is showing people here and across Arizona that we do value each employee. But like I said, I wish there would have been a difference not a big difference, but an actual difference in percentage. But because we did all come to consensus on it, it is the option that needs to move forward. That is the process.
Okay, that's me. I just wanted to piggyback off of what Megan suggested about longevity. That's a great thing. I was also, I don't know if this is possible, but tying in performance maybe in the future somehow. I mean, that's another thing that's getting pushed. You know, we want to succeed and push for higher level of achievement. I think that's one way that needs to be addressed in the future. It hasn't been in a while. That's really important, is those highly successful teachers are getting the same as some that are not, and I think we need to fix that at some point and find a way for classified as well. I don't know. It's just for a future discussion.
I agree with Megan. We followed the process, and this is what we came up with, was 10% across the board. But and I can live with that because it's great. It's more money than we've seen in a long, long time. Like she was saying, I honestly feel there should have been a little bit of a difference between the two. It didn't have to be a lot, but there should have been a little more done to better support our certified and classified staff. A 10% raise looks great any way you cut it, but 10% raise on an admin salary compared to somebody who's a classified staff member, that's a huge jump, and that's understandable. And it should be, because the jobs aren't the same, but I think we could have done more to support our certified and classified staff members. We have to find a way to keep highly qualified teachers here. We want to keep our good administration here too. 10% is awesome, but I feel like we could have gotten a little more creative in the way we did it and had a little differentiation there, but I can live with it. It's the process. That's what we came up with.
I just want to also add into what I was going to say before Sergio started talking, pretty much what Megan was. I wanted to piggyback on yours too, is I really do think we have to figure out, as we move forward, we're going to need to be taking a look at, number one, taking a look at how do we encourage people to stay within our district and celebrate that through the longevity and also through the performance, Sergio. And then also maybe looking at, we've compacted again. We're going to have to take a look at how to uncompact that, because that is a problem. Like, I agree that everybody, that everybody benefits from the raises, but there has to be some differences to encourage people to continue to take on leadership roles and to take on supervisory roles. And when we compact that, there's a significant amount of responsibility that goes with those things, and we want to grow our own in this district. So I think we just have to go back and look at how to, is it uncompress, decompress? Decompress, how we might need to go back and take a look at that.
I hope moving forward also the meet and confer team next year will focus on that starting teacher's salary, because if you looked at the data that both Megan and I gathered, we are at the very low end of starting teacher salaries, and that's really concerning, because when you're recruiting teachers, a couple of $1,000s a year does make a difference. It's it might be a rent payment for a month or something. And I think I'm so happy that you're moving it, that the decision was to move it to $38,000. I hope that there will be energy put into continuing to raise that, because I think districts around us are highly competitive. So I think what I'll do moving forward is Mike and I will work on the action item, and we'll put it on the next board meeting. We will email it out to all of you for your review. It will reflect what your recommendation is today. I believe it would probably go on the next regularly scheduled board meeting, which is June 14th, so that we could be then prepared for that July 1st paycheck, the paycheck following the July 1st work week. And then you would be able to, if you want to, come to the board on June 14th if you're in town, or if not, I'm sure you could watch it on video. Mike, anybody else have anything to say?
Just to thank everyone for their time.
Yes, look at you, and you got done it before.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for going through this process. I know we were questioning what was our next steps and everything, and going back to just following that process and making sure that we completed it. So thank you.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
I don't think we don't.
Thank you, everyone.
Good try on that.